Alright. I'm turning the music off. This is serious. This is serious, guys. I do not want to get my deck text muted. That's not fun. I got my deck tech muted on my last video because I had songs playing. Don't do it. Don't have songs playing when you do deck text. Bad idea. Bad Twitch idea. Don't do it. Okay. So this is gonna be the start of my deck tech. All that other stuff was just me rambling and creating the skeleton for the deck. This is the deck tech. Okay. So just packed Sphinx's Decree. I'm gonna have to card that one. I don't even know what that does. Yeah, I don't know what it is either, Shaolin. Oh, that card. I remember both of us talked trash about that card. I vividly remember both of us saying that card is just bad. That's my thoughts on the card, and I still think the same thing. I still think that card's bad. Anyway, deck tech time. So, normally I like to start out slow, and that's why Otapek is not in this deck and Drover is. As you can see, I've got a lot of 4-drops. I've got a lot of 5-drops. I've got some 6-drops. I've got some 8-drops. I've got some 12-drops. You're usually not a 12-drop though. Anyway, Otapek Huntmaster. First of all, he's a 1/2. So that can be a problem just by itself. A lot of the time, I don't want to be hasting my stuff in. I mean, obviously I would. Like, you give me the option to haste something in, I'll take the option to haste something in. But, no, if we're being serious, though, I think having a 3/3 that also can cover any color mana, by the way. This is a 3-color deck. 3, Trace. You have to cover 3 different colors, and Drover helps with that. Otapek doesn't. Otapek, I mean, I guess, no, he really doesn't. Like, if you don't have double white, you can't cast your Trapjaw Tyrant, you know, with Otapek. So I think Drover is just completely better for a Naya deck. If you're trying to do a Naya deck and you're using Otapek Huntmaster, I think you're doing it wrong. And I feel pretty strongly about that. Furthermore, Drover can withstand Forerunner. 3 toughness is a big deal in this deck. You'll notice that the only card I have that doesn't have 3 toughness is Raptor Hatchling. And Raptor Hatchling, you might as well call it Radiant Flames, because I'm just trying to cast this most of the time so that I can just sweep up an opponent's board. And I'll do that a lot. Like, sometimes I'll get Forerunner of the Empire out, and like, you'd expect, oh yeah, you want to get your Ghalta, you want to get your Polyraptor, you want to get your Carnage Tyrant, and I'll actually reveal Raptor Hatchling. And if I have enough mana, sometimes I can play Ranging Raptors and Raptor Hatchling in the same turn, deal 3 damage to everything, and sweep up a lot of cards. But mostly, even 2 damage, like, that's just gonna do a lot of damage, and that's kind of a reason why I think Fiery Cannonade is not a card you want to run in this deck. On top of the fact that, you know, Fiery Cannonade can't hit pirates. But, yeah, I think one benefit to this deck is you can set yourself up to sweep the board pretty easily. You can play Forerunner turn 4. You don't have to just choose Polyraptor. Like, a lot of the times, and it sounds crazy, but a lot of the times the targets I choose with my Forerunner are actually Ripjaw Raptor or Ranging Raptors. And I pick Ranging Raptors a lot because it can just help you curve out. Like, say your mana's awkward or something, and you have a Forerunner, and you just play him. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just get Ranging Raptors and fix my mana, you know? And it works. It does a lot of work. And you get into these board states, like, where you get Ranging Raptors, Ripjaw Raptor, Trapjaw Tyrant, and you can just sort of anthem your way to make your board way better. Get a ton of card draw going, get any land you want out, which is important because you are a 3-color deck, and your Drovers survive it. And I keep going back to that Otapek Huntmaster thing. Like, Otapek Huntmaster has a very difficult time surviving these Forerunner assaults that I try to go for, whereas Drover the Mighty, he can tank that shit all day. It's awesome. I know, obviously, if I'm dealing 3 damage to everything, that my Forerunners will die, but sometimes you may need to do that. It's sad, but, hey, it is what it is. It's still a sweeper effect, and you can still really stall out a Merfolk deck and just completely stop what they're doing. And speaking of Merfolk, I've got really good cards that deal with Merfolk. One of the problems that I notice I have with Merfolk when I use some of my lower to the ground decks is I just don't have that one-shot answer that deals like 3 or 4 damage. Reckless Rage deals 4 damage. It kills Kumena. Reckless Rage kills Kumena and gets you a land if you have a Ranging Raptors out. So I just feel like this deck hoses Merfolk pretty well. Like, much better than, any other deck would. And there's a reason that I'm playing this. I can survive Golden Demise now. Golden Demise doesn't kill anything except Raptor Hatchling. That's it. That's all I need to worry about for Golden Demise. Like, these sweepers, I know their slaughter they're strong, but I've never even had that cast against me, which is kind of weird. You'd think more people would be going for that, but no, it's crazy. Like, I just feel like I'm at such an advantage against Merfolk, against vampires, against pirates, and that's kind of why I decided to use this deck. And I'm going to go into a little mini rant later about that. But yeah, I really think Drover is just so good here. Now, the one weakness of this deck is Ixalan's Binding. I would say if you're using a Sanguine Sacrament deck and you go up against me, I actually think you're going to win it. I really do. Because my Reckless Rages have no targets. My Savage Stomp has no targets. Your Settle the Wreckage has tons of targets. And I don't have little fancy lands that destroy lands because I just want to curve out. Field of Ruin, like, the thing with Field of Ruin is I think it would go good in the sideboard, but the thing that I'm trying to do with this deck is curve out. And my argument is that against most decks that have fancy lands that do things, as long as I curve out, my argument is that I'm going to try and beat you regardless of your fancy land. And I know that argument's not always going to win, but I feel like the general amount of decks that I face don't use fancy lands or, other things that I need to deal with. They don't, and I'm just trying to pick fights with the aggro decks. I'm trying to pick fights with the tribes when I play this, because I think this deck does a very efficient job picking fights with tribes. Even dinosaurs, like Trapjaw Tyrant. A lot of decks aren't running this right now. And dinosaur decks, they don't actually have too many answers for Trapjaw Tyrant, other than Savage Stomp would be the main one. So if I can start antheming like Trapjaw Tyrants, that's another thing. I can deal with anything on the board, which is so important. Phoenix, that's actually a very easy thing to deal with. I used to hate Phoenix when I ran my vampire deck, but when I run this deck, I just Reckless Rage it or I Savage Stomp it and I play a dinosaur and the 0-1 dies. And I'm not actually scared of Phoenix anymore. It's crazy. For the first time in my life, I feel like I can go toe-to-toe with Phoenix and win. And that's a great feeling, because I'll tell you, that Phoenix has just caused me to concede so many games when I'm running vampires and whatnot. But anyway, back to the Field of Ruin thing. The argument that I'm making with this deck is that if you go for your sort of fancy lands, why am I not playing Phoenix? Because it doesn't get enraged triggers. And also I don't own any, but no. The synergy goes way down if I'm running Phoenix. Like, every card in this deck has a purpose. The cards that have very little purpose would, I guess, be Galta, because that doesn't synergize too well with Enrage. Hang on, is Forerunner a dinosaur? I believe Forerunner only applies to dinosaurs, right? Forerunner of the Empire. Only when dinosaurs ETB does it deal 1 damage. Yes. So there's another reason right there. Again, you really do like these sweeper effects. Forerunner does a great job just sweeping boards, and I don't even struggle against Phoenix. Like, Phoenix isn't actually as bad against this deck as it is against, Phoenix is great against most decks. I don't think it's as good against this one. Reckless Rage is easy to have at least 1 copy of for it, and then you just slam a Forerunner, slam a dinosaur down, and it's not that bad. There's probably scenarios where Phoenix will just own me, but there's a lot of scenarios where I own Phoenix, so. Anyway, back to Field of Ruin. As I said, I really don't want to mess up my mana base. I am a 3-color deck. I don't want to have a Field of Ruin that just makes things slow. Why no 4 Ripjaw? Because I don't own 4 Ripjaw. Again, this is my deck. I am showing you guys my deck. This is what I am playing on Arena right now. I've spent a lot of wild cards on this. If I had a 4th Ripjaw, I'm not sure if I would use it, though, to be honest. because I really think having 3 Forerunner of the Empires is actually important, because this is a card that you want to curve into almost just as bad as you want to curve into Ripjaw Raptor. Like, that is how close it is, and if I'm not drawing Forerunner of the Empire, it's kind of sad. Like, I don't know. You could probably cut 1 Forerunner, add 1 Ripjaw, but at the same time, I really think 3 Forerunners is important, because you're putting... how do I put this? You're sort of setting yourself up against whatever you're facing, you know? If you're facing control and you cast your Forerunner, you actually get to tailor how your deck plays against that deck, and that's important. I love Forerunner because I have a lot of different things to choose from, and I can tailor what I put on the top of my deck based on what the matchup is. If I'm facing Merfolk, I'll probably put a Raptor Hatchling on the top of my deck. If I'm facing Vampires, I'll probably put a Raptor Hatchling on the top of my deck. If I'm facing Dinosaurs, I'll probably put either a Trapjaw Tyrant or a Ranging Raptors on top of my deck. And that's assuming I don't have enough mana for Polyraptor. This is like early game that I'm talking about right now. And for Forerunner of the Empire, he really tailors like your matchup. Like, depending on what you're facing, you're gonna want different dinosaurs to deal with different matchups. You want your Carnage Tyrant against Control? Great. Forerunner does an awesome job with that. And that's why I have a 1 of Carnage Tyrant, by the way. Anyway, one weakness of this deck, Ixalan's Binding. What is my max polys so far? Not many. I actually had a board state earlier today where I had 2 Forerunner of the Empires, and I was about to cast my Polyraptor. And I don't know if you remember CGB talking about getting like 50 Polyraptors or something. I had that board state set up. I had 2 Forerunner of the Empires, and I was about to cast my Polyraptor. It was my opponent's turn. He conceded. So it was really sad. Don't really talk to me too much about that. It's a little bit depressing. I really wanted to go off with Polyraptor that game. I guess I got the win, but didn't feel good. But I haven't been playing the deck too long. This is probably my second day. I think it's my second day with the deck. And the first day, I only ended up getting it after I cracked my vault. So it's only day 2. So don't fear not. Polyraptor can still go off. I've just never had that board state where I have 2 Forerunners, 1 Polyraptor, and I came close to it yesterday, and I was about to do it, but he conceded. But yeah, it's definitely something I want to try to do, and that's another reason why I think you should go a little bit heavier with Forerunner, because it allows you to set up for crazy board states. Like, I've had a number of games where my opponent starts off ahead of me, but eventually I just get Forerunner of the Empire and Ripjaw Raptor and Ranging Raptors on the board, right? Like, they're ahead of me, but because I'm a slow deck, you can tell I'm a slow deck. I have 26 lands in it. But I eventually get into this board state where I get Forerunner to just start pinging everything I have and pinging their 2/1 pirates and their 1/1 pirates that have been just harassing me all game. And I start drawing cards, I start just turning the corner so effectively. Especially with Trapjaw Tyrant, which there aren't many answers for. There's not a lot of things that just deal 5 damage. Like, you need to have Vraska's Contempt, or some, like, niche removal spell. Chupacabra, I guess. But other than those, there's not too much that can just deal with Trapjaw Tyrant, and you're going to be exiling their best threat, and I've had this happen a lot of times, especially against Merfolk. Trapjaw Tyrant is just a beating to Merfolk decks. Like, you'll just exile their Kumena or just really whatever you feel like, honestly. Like, it's actually insane, because you Reckless Rage your Trapjaw Tyrant, you kill their best creature, usually, and then you exile another one, all in the same turn. And you only need 2 cards for that combo. You need Trapjaw Tyrant, and you need either Savage Stomp or Reckless Rage, or a Forerunner. And you guys see how many cards can trigger that combo. It's crazy. Or, no, Swordtooth as well. So Swordtooth, Forerunner, Reckless Rage, or Savage Stomp on this guy, take out their best creature. You know? And it's not like that applies just to Trapjaw Tyrant. That applies to Ripjaw Raptor, that applies to Ranging Raptors, that applies to Polyraptor. You'll notice there's a lot of Raptors in this deck, what can I say? But anyway, this is not the final version. I wish it was, but I do want to take Galta out because the synergy is just not quite there. The one weakness to this deck Well, first of all, I think Control can actually beat this deck pretty effectively. And the reason for that is because you're slower. It's not like you're getting, what's the name of that Ixalan card? That dinosaur that's 5 mana. It's not like you're getting Regisaur Alphas out that are just destroying them super fast. I don't have Regisaur Alpha because I'm a slower deck. I want to curve out and set up these Anthem-like board states. It almost feels like Allies if they were good. Like, you know those ally decks where everything's an ally and then everything gets vigilance and everything gets indestructible? I know it's not the exact same thing. It's a completely different principle. But it's similar in a way because you're antheming. You're getting all your guys to do something. Your Ranging Raptors is getting your land. Your Ripjaw Raptor is drawing you cards. Your Trapjaw Tyrant is dealing with their best threat. Your Polyraptor is just doing its own Polyraptor things. And it just adds up to this crazy board state where it's not that hard to curve into. You just got to get a couple threats on board, and eventually it gets better and better because you're improving your draw odds as you get more lands out of your deck. You're improving your lands just based on selection. You know, if you need that one plains, grab that one plains, and then you're just drawing more cards. Like, there's just so much going on that's just so difficult to deal with. And I just want to reiterate that you can also set up sweepers with this deck very easily. You just play Raptor Hatchling, you deal 2 damage to everything. You just play Raging Swordtooth, you deal 2 damage to everything, so long as you have a Forerunner of the Empire out. Which is not hard, because Forerunner of the Empire can fetch either of these. Can fetch anything in this deck other than Drover. Okay. What else to talk about? I do think this deck is weak against Control. As I said, Control, you're a little bit slower, so Control can set up and they can wreck you. But that's okay. There is one card that I want to throw into this deck that can deal with Ixalan's Binding, that can deal with, let's see if I can find this card name, that can deal with Baffling End, and that card is Zacama. I really wish I had one of these. Also, it can deal with artifacts, which is pretty important too. So there's like so much that this card can do. And there's things that you don't even realize it can do, like until you get a closer look at it. This card can trigger Enrage. If nothing else, I can draw more cards with it. I can exile more creatures with it. You have 3. I am so jealous that you have 3 Zakamas. Can you just loan me one, Shaolin? Can you just loan me one Zakama? I promise I'll put it to good use. I'll give you this Galta. You can borrow my Galta, and I'll just take your Zakama for a bit. You say yes? That sounds like a good deal. Sweet, man. Thanks. But yeah, as I'm saying, 3 damage. It doesn't say damage an opponent controls. You know, you can damage your Ripjaw Raptor. You can damage your Trapjaw Tyrant. You can damage your Polyraptor. You can damage your Polyraptor. Who'd have thought, you know? And that's pretty cool. And then, like, you can just get this thing out. Like, say they've just Ixalan bindinged a ton of your stuff, and it looks like you're about to lose. You just draw this, or you get it with Forerunner of the Empire. You play it, you take out, like, 3 Ixalan's bindings, get all your guys back. That's pretty fun. Also, this is a slower deck. Let's say you want to gain 9 life. Why not, right? Let's gain 9 life, sure. There's just a lot of reasons why I want to put Zacama into this deck. And it's not hard to get him out. Like, I know 9 mana sounds intimidating, but when I start going off with Ranging Raptors and Forerunners and have my Drover out, like, I feel like I'm going to be able to get to 9 mana pretty easily. I get into a lot of these board states where I might run out of gas, but I have like 15 land out because I was just able to do so much work with Ranging Raptors and Savage Stomp and Reckless Rage and Forerunner of the Empire and Raging Swordtooth that I just get so many land out that even if they deal with my board state, like, I can top deck good things, and boy would this be a good top deck. It'd be a much better top deck than a Galta, that's for sure. And when I do make the completed version of this deck, I think that Zacama is going to go into it. I think that that's going to be a no-brainer for me. And I'm not sure what I'm going to switch. I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything else with it. Obviously, if I could have the rare lands in there, I would put them in there in a heartbeat. But obviously, you have to use a lot of wild cards to get a bunch of cool lands, so probably not going to do that. I think I'm just going to switch Galta out for Zacama, and that's probably going to be the only switch. Because I can always find Ripjaw Raptor with Forerunner, so it's not like because I have 3 Ripjaw Raptors that it's the end of the world for me. And I think 3 Trapjaw Tyrants, it's the same thing. Like, I can always find them. I think Raging Swordtooth is just too important to not have, because it's a great way to just enrage all of your creatures, and it's a 5/5 with trample. Like, it just does so much work, and it sounds kind of crazy for me to want to put this in the completed product. Like, the final version of this deck still has a Raging Swordtooth, but I think the card is that good for enrage that you want to have it. It's just a big body, if nothing else, you know? But yeah, I think that's basically my summed up version of the deck. I want to get a Zakama in here. If I had to build a sideboard, I'd probably throw some Thrashing Bronodons in there just to further hose down like enchantment decks. I'd probably throw 4 Field of Ruin in the sideboard. I don't like screwing my mana base when I have, when I really want to curve out into big things, Otherwise, I would run Field of Ruin main deck, but I just don't think... Talk more about sideboard against control. Well, yeah, this is the card right here, Field of Ruin. See if I can throw these in here. All 4, I think. Maybe I'm being a little crazy, but I think all 4 is pretty good. If you're facing Sanguine Sacrament, you'd probably want 4 Rampaging Ferocidons before that gets banned. I think this is just really good against Sacrament. They're not going to be gaining all that life, so probably important. And I think Thrashing Brontodon as well. I'm not sure if these are 4-ofs or not. I haven't, obviously we don't have, the ability to use sideboards post-game, but I think this is the start of the sideboard. 4 of each of these, because then you can, you can deal with Search for Azcanta multiple times. Carnage Tyrant, Roar, yeah. Maybe I could cut 1 Field of Ruin or something just for those control matchups, and then have a Carnage Tyrant instead. Need something against counter spells? No, you're right. I think Carnage Tyrant is a good pick. Am I supposed to go 4 of Ferocidon, Brontodon, or is that a little bit overkill? Am I supposed to run 3 Field of Ruin? Is that a little bit overkill? Shaper's Sanctuary. I don't know if I like Shaper's Sanctuary that much. Maybe it is sideboard worthy, but I know you're drawing a lot of cards. I guess it could be good. I haven't really played around with that too much, so I'd have to think about that one. The card that's coming to mind to me, though, what is it called? It's from Ixalan, and it gains you life, and it exiles cards. And it is a dinosaur for 3 mana. Deathgorge Scavenger. I think that could have a place in this sideboard. I'd Ferocidon for other matchups, and you don't need field. You think so? The thing that I'm scared of by not having field is the Journey to Eternity decks, because I faced this deck about 2 or 3 times since I've built this deck, and Journey to Eternity has beaten me, I think, all of the times that I faced it, because they just get that Chupacabra back after they enchant it. It kills my best creature, and then they just start getting stuff back every turn. And like, what would you suggest if I'm not running Field of Ruin against that? Would you just suggest that Thrashing Bronodon deals with it by sacking itself? I don't know. I feel like Field of Ruin's pretty good. I do also want to run Deathgorge, but I feel like it might just... I think these cards might outclass Deathgorge. I never really struggle with life, that's the thing. Like, you'd think that a slow deck like this would be very low on its life total, but it actually hasn't turned out to be the case thus far, because I can normally sweep the board up pretty quick. I know that I keep forgetting the name of it, Deathgorge Scavenger. I know that he can deal with graveyards pretty well for Search for Azcanta decks, but normally Search for Azcanta decks can deal with him. Bronto Binding in sideboard. Binding is interesting. Gotta go, kids are pressuring me. Alright, man. Take care, I hope you enjoyed the deck tech. What's my sideboard at now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I gotta add 3 more cards. I do think Brontodon is definitely a 4 of, and I think Ferocidon is a 4 of. I know the guy that made it to. Pardon me. I have forgotten his name. No, I did. I remember his name. Javier Dominguez. His Rampaging Ferocidon was a 4 of in the sideboard, and I think he would use it for Approach of the Second Sun sort of matchups. And I know we're not facing Approach of the Second Sun, but as a 4 of, I think this is a great sideboard. You know what I could do? Maybe I could run another Carnage Tyrant. I don't know. Regisaur Alpha sort of comes to mind as well. Like, what if instead of dealing with their lands, what if I just race them with Alpha? Like, I take out the Raging Swordtooths, I put in the Alphas, and I just try to go ham. Ferocidon maybe. Binding can replace some Brontos. You think so? I'm scared to run Binding, because I always feel like they Binding my Binding, or I don't know. But I guess if you can see the deck list, like if you know what you're up against, then it's not as bad. What am I at right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So maybe 3 Binding could help against that sort of thing. I'm just not sure what I'm binding, though. Like, what do you have in mind when you're using binding? Like, I guess anything, but Vraska would probably be the best target that I could hit with it. Or another binding. It could be good. I'm very hesitant to use this card simply because you can get screwed over playing it if they have, the right tools. But I guess it's matchup dependent, and not every deck does have the right tools. There's a lot of decks that do just get hosed by this card, so maybe that's what I'm supposed to be thinking about here. As I said earlier, you bind Chupa. That's a good idea. The problem with that, though, is don't they just run a bunch of Thrashing Brontodons, Like, if I was running that deck, I would Brontodon this Ixalan's Binding in a heartbeat. Search for Azcana or Map. Yeah. I don't know if I'm completely sold, but I'm not going to say it's bad. But it's just, I'm wondering if there are better options, I can't help but think about that. So let's see. I think that's 3 copies. Let's see. Yeah, 3 copies. Why would they run enchantment removal against you? Yeah, I'm talking about. I'm talking specifically the Journey into Eternity matchup where they run a bunch of Brontodons and sort of salivate when they see things like Ixalan's Binding. I know that in certain matchups, this is obviously going to be good. I do think that Trapjaw Tyrant and these sort of compete with each other, because Trapjaw Tyrant also can just deal with any creature. I know it's not a permanent, so you can still hit Search for Azcana and Map, as you said, with Ixalan's Binding. So they are different. They're not the same thing. But just some speculation, Alright. I think that's about a finished deck tech. I bet you they cut the Brontos after game 1 with no targets. That's a good point. Yeah. Because I don't really have a good target, dude. There's no enchantments whatsoever. I try to do that too. I try to make it so that you have to deal with me. Not some fancy stuff on the sidelines. You have to deal with the board itself, And yeah, I could definitely see Brontodon getting sideboarded out and Ixalan's Binding just being a champ. It's sort of like playing rock, paper, scissors if they know what your sideboard is. If they don't, then chances are they might take it out and then Ixalan's Binding can shine. I could definitely see that. Alright. Should I get into